Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Birds. Today, we are going to be going over three breakout players in 2022 fantasy football. We're talking three guys that you should be targeting in your drafts that have breakout potential this upcoming NFL season. Let's hop right into our three breakout players. The first guy I want to talk about is going to be Javonte Williams for the Denver Broncos. Last season, a lot of fantasy managers were drafting Javonte Williams, hoping he was going to break out his rookie season. Didn't really end up happening. The biggest reason for that is going to be Melvin Gordon. Last year, Melvin Gordon, clearly the number one running back in this Broncos offense, but we expect that to change this season. We don't expect Gordon to have the same role this upcoming year. Gordon going into age 29 season in the NFL. We've seen in the past clear regression once running backs hit this age 28 year. So he's a year removed from that age 28 season. We expect Melvin Gordon's role to be basically swapped with what we saw with Javonte Williams last year. Let's look at some of Javonte Williams' numbers from last year. Nearly 4.5 yards per carry on the ground. These are very elite numbers in the National Football League, even for a backup running back. Getting around 43 receptions through the air. So we see he has the ability to get the touches not only on the ground, but also in this receiving game, which is going to lift his floor on a week-to-week basis. Last season, actually graded as the most elusive running back in the National Football League, forcing missed tackles at the highest percentage out of all running backs in the league. So Javonte Williams has shown he is a very talented running back, and when given the opportunity, he can produce the numbers. Last season, when forced into that running back one role, Melvin Gordon missed his game. Javonte Williams clearly showed he could be that workhorse running back, putting up very efficient numbers while taking an absolute beating, getting nearly 30 carries on the ground. So Javonte Williams has shown he has the ability to be the number one running back on this team. Last year, by far the more efficient running back in this backfield. This year, we're going to expect their roles to swap. Javonte Williams getting the heavy work on the ground and Melvin Gordon providing that backup role in relief. But let's look more at why we expect Javonte Williams to break out in his sophomore year in the NFL. They go from Teddy Bridgewater, who on average is producing nearly 18 touchdowns over the course of a season. Russell Wilson coming into town for the Denver Broncos, nearly 30 touchdowns per season. So we're seeing a much more efficient offense, much more explosive offense in Denver. And this is going to lend itself extremely well to Javonte Williams in the passing game and on the ground. He's going to see increased touches in the red zone, and where he's going to see more trips to the red zone and more opportunities to score touchdowns, as this offense is going to be much more efficient and explosive 2022 under Russell Wilson. There's no reason not to be drafting Javonte Williams. Last year, he finishes as running back 17 in half PPR settings. This year, he's going as running back 12 in underdog fantasy, which is shown to be the most accurate average draft position numbers out there at this current moment. You're getting a slight discount on Javonte Williams given his increased role this season. Also, the offensive upgrade that they see it with Russell Wilson. Last year, we saw Javonte Williams' snap percentage consistently increasing from the beginning of the season towards the end. Started at around 40%, ended near 60%. So the team has already showed that they want to get Javonte Williams more involved in this offense. Coming out in year two with a much better quarterback under center, Javonte Williams got to see the early down role in this offense and should be a breakout player in fantasy football. We love drafting Javonte Williams. Even with Melvin Gordon still being on this team, he's going to play that number 2 role. So Javonte Williams is going to be our number 1 breakout candidate in fantasy football 2022. The second guy on our list today is going to be Marquise Hollywood Brown, now of the Arizona Cardinals, coming over in that draft day deal where the Arizona Cardinals send over a first-round pick to get their new number 1 wide receiver, especially in the first 6 weeks of the season where DeAndre Hopkins is going to be missing nearly half the season with his suspension. Not only is Hopkins going to be missing games, but also the team loses Christian Kirk and Chase Edmonds, 2 of the more efficient pass catchers on this team from a year ago. So nearly 170 targets are going to be available for this Cardinals offense this upcoming season with those guys departing like we talked about. So Brown clearly stepping into a huge volume opportunity in Arizona, where he's going to have 6 weeks to become the number 1 wide receiver on this team, cement himself in this offense, and build that chemistry with Kyler Murray. We've already seen them do it at the University of Oklahoma, college teammates, where they performed extremely well together. So they have that built-in chemistry, which lends me to believe that it's going to translate at the NFL level under Cliff Kingsbury. This is one of the more pass-heavy teams in the National Football League. So Hollywood Brown should fit right into this air raid offense. But let's look at what Hollywood Brown did last season for a more run-heavy offense in Baltimore. The first 10 weeks of the season, he was nearly averaging 18 fantasy points per game, clearly a number one wide receiver in fantasy. Towards the end of the season, Lamar Jackson and Brown, both dealing with injuries, kind of derailed their season, basically derailed the entire Ravens season, as both were missing games and dealing with injuries. But prior to these injuries, Brown was having one of the more dominant fantasy seasons across the entire league. So he's shown the ability to be that number one guy and produce in fantasy. And now he comes over from the team with the third highest rushing attempts to a team with a top 5 passing offense in the National Football League. Kyler Murray, more passing touchdowns, more passing yards, and more passing opportunities than Lamar Jackson had in Baltimore with Brown. So he's got this huge availability of targets with all those guys departing and the offense, which makes for a perfect equation for Marquise Brown to be a breakout candidate in fantasy football 2022 with Kyler Murray, his new quarterback, facilitating a much more favorable fantasy output than Lamar Jackson did in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson obviously going to get more of his work done on the ground. Kyler Murray definitely going to facilitate more in his offense to his wide receivers, which could lead Marquise Brown to be a great pick in fantasy drafts this upcoming season. Last guy on our list is going to be Rashod Bateman for those Ravens that we just talked about. Bateman and Brown's values kind of go hand in hand as they're both on the rise with Brown heading out to Arizona. Bateman, a first-round wide receiver just a year ago, coming into his rookie season, dealing with a lot of injuries, which plagued him, forced him to miss those first 5 games. So a slow start to Bateman's NFL career, but that's expected for a rookie wide receiver, especially missing a lot of time in training camp, not able to get those reps and chemistry down with his quarterback. But once Bateman was back and healthy for this team, his snap percentage soared from nearly 60% to the end of the season, the last 4 games, where he's playing nearly 90% of snaps for this Baltimore Ravens team. This is very important to note, especially when this Ravens team loses nearly 270 targets from a season ago. This is going to mainly due to Hollywood Brown, like we just talked about, going to the Cardinals, but also Sammy Watkins, 2 of the leading target catchers on this team. So now Lamar Jackson, all he has through the air left is Mark Andrews and Rashod Bateman, who's going to see a huge target share this upcoming season. The team has shown they are extremely invested and confident in Bateman's ability to be that alpha wide receiver, trading away Hollywood Brown, a deal no one saw coming. Lamar Jackson has expressed his displeasure with the move, but this just shows how confident the Ravens are with Bateman to be that number one wide receiver that they drafted in the first round. So they have the team investment. They have the target share opportunity available in Baltimore. Even though Baltimore is a top 5 rushing team in the NFL, they're going to be extremely more efficient this upcoming season. With J.K. Dobbins coming back, last year we saw the circus that was the backfield in Baltimore, signing aging running backs just to fill a void caused from the Dobbins and Gus Edwards injury. But these guys should be back this upcoming season, which is going to lead to a more efficient offense, which can only help Rashod Bateman on the outside, getting more efficient targets while also collecting the volume left behind by Hollywood Brown and Sammy Watkins. Bateman definitely in a prime opportunity to smash in fantasy football 2022. We've seen Lamar Jackson progress as a passer through the first years of his career. With all this in mind, Bateman has the team investment opportunity and target share available to break out in 2022 fantasy football. We need to be drafting him alongside Mark Andrews as the only 2 viable pass catchers in this Baltimore offense. But these are going to be the 3 guys we love drafting in fantasy football 2022 as top breakout candidates. Javonte Williams, Hollywood Brown, and Rashod Bateman we see breaking out in 2022. We thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.